Here's a question. Which generation is actually saving the most money right now? And you would probably guess baby boomers, right? Maybe Gen X. But in 2024, the generation that saved the most wasn't who most people expected. According to a New York Life study, millennials came out on top, averaging $12,004.87 in savings, beating out Gen X, Gen Z, and even baby boomers. That stat made me dig a little deeper, and let me tell you, the savings numbers across generations in 2025 paint a very revealing picture. So let's get into it. How do the average savings balances stack up by generation? And more importantly, what can you take away from it? And let's start with the numbers. Millennials, born between 1981 and 1996, led the pack in 2024, as mentioned earlier, with an average of just over $12,000 in savings. Not bad, especially considering they're also dealing with things like rising housing costs, student loans, and in many cases, younger kids. Right behind them is Generation X, folks born between 1965 and 1980 with more than $7,000 saved. Gen Z, the newcomers to the workforce, pulled in about $6,164 on average. And then we've got the baby boomers who came in last with just over $3,400 in savings. Now, these numbers might seem backwards. You would expect the older generations like boomers and Gen X to have more saved up, right? After all, they've been in the workforce longer, and many are nearing or already in retirement. But remember, these numbers reflect how much was saved in 2024 alone, not total savings. That's a big distinction. Boomers might have saved less from this past year because they're living off retirement income now. They're not socking money away like they did in their working years. On the other hand, millennials and Gen Z are in that grind phase of life, and they're still building, still hustling, still making those contributions, whether to retirement plans, emergency funds, or just plain old savings accounts. And while we're on that topic, there's something you need to understand about why younger generations often have smaller balances. It's not because they're bad with money, and some people may still be, and it's because they haven't had time. And less time in the workforce means less money earned and less money stashed away. Plus, they typically got a mountain of student loan debt, and that eats away at their ability to save. And in fact, the Federal Reserve has data showing that millennials and Gen Z are the biggest student loan borrowers. That's a monthly payment dragging on their budget, making it harder to prioritize savings. And with the cost of living rising, rent, groceries, gas, everything, it's easy to see how saving can take a back seat. But Gen X is not exactly coasting either. These are the folks in their peak earning years, sure, but they're also juggling a lot. Mortgages, credit card debt, car loans, college tuition for their kids, it all stacked up. The most recent data from Experience shows Gen X has the highest average credit card balance at $9,557. That's a serious financial drag. Millennials are right behind them with an average of $6,932 in credit card debt. So, what about boomers? Don't count them out just because their savings were lower in 2024. When you zoom out and look at total account balances, they still hold the most wealth overall. And that's because many of them spent decades saving and investing. According to the Federal Reserve, boomers between the ages of 65 and 74 have the highest overall savings account balances. And that makes sense. They've had the most time to accumulate wealth. What we're seeing now is a drawdown phase, and where they're spending the money they work hard to build. It's also worth mentioning that older generations face a different set of challenges, and healthcare costs, for one, go way up with age. And that alone can eat into savings quickly, especially for folks who are not covered by a generous employer plan or do not qualify for certain benefits. So while they may not be saving new money every year, they are dealing with expenses that the younger generations haven't faced yet. I've got some numbers here from a Federal Reserve study, and they paint a picture of how savings balances change as we get older. And it's a pretty clear trend. The older you get, the more you tend to have saved. For folks under 35, the average total savings is around $20,540 in transaction accounts, but that number skyrockets for the 65 to 74 age group, who have an average of over $100,000 in those same accounts. It's not just about one type of savings either. The data shows that as people get older, they also build up substantial balances in CDs and savings bonds, with the 65 to 74 age group leading the pack with an average of almost $140,000 in CDs. And this just goes to show you that a consistent long-term approach to saving is what truly builds wealth. And it's a marathon. not a sprint. Now, if you're looking at your bank account and thinking you're way behind, don't panic. There are some solid strategies you can use to start building or rebuilding your savings, no matter what generation you belong to. The first thing you need to do is pick the right type of savings account. Now, you probably have a savings account at your local bank that's paying next to nothing. And I mean next to nothing. The national average interest rate for a savings account, according to the FDIC, is 0.38%. That is ridiculous. Now, you can do so much better. The best high yield savings accounts out there are offering 3.5 to 4% APY or higher. And that's 10 times what the average bank is giving you, right? So switch your bank. Don't be afraid to move your money to a high yield savings account or a money market account. It's a simple change, but it can make a huge difference over time. Now, when it comes to picking a high yield savings account, you might be wondering where to even start. And I'll tell you what I would do if I were in your shoes. I personally use Ally Bank. Now, full disclosure, I'm not sponsored by them or anybody else. And I just genuinely like their service and their rates. And they have these bucket savings that I really like to keep track of. But if you're looking for other options, a lot of my clients have also had great success with banks like SoFi and American Express. The important thing is to find a bank that offers a high APY and makes it easy for you to manage your money. Just make sure you find a bank that has a proven track record and not some shady bank. And that brings me to my next point, and it's probably the most important one. Automate your savings. We're all humans, and sometimes we get lazy. We all have good intentions, but then life gets in the way. You get home from a long day at work, you're tired, and the last thing you want to do is log into your bank account and transfer your money from your checking account to your savings account. It's a pain. And there's also a psychological component to it. You don't want to see your checking account balance drop, even if you know it's going to a good cause. But if you automate your savings, you take all of that pain and friction out of the equation. Just set up a recurring transfer every payday or every week, whichever one you want, and let the money go directly into your savings account before you even have a chance to spend it. And every Friday, I automate transfers to 5 different high yield savings accounts, HYSAs, each with a specific savings goal. And this helps me stay on track without even thinking about it. And so, for example, saving $5,000 for a trip in 2026 means putting away $97 every Friday for a year. If I want to spend $500 for Christmas shopping next year, saving $10 every single week will get me there. Automation takes the pressure off and makes your goals feel more achievable. So here are the 5 high yield savings accounts that I maintain at all times. First, checking account. I know that's not a savings account, but it's one of the accounts. And this is my operating account. And I always keep 1 month's worth of expenses in here as a buffer. And it gives me peace of mind knowing I can cover all of my regular bills and spending without overdrafting or scrambling. Next, emergency fund. So since I already have at least 1 month of expenses in my checking account, I keep at least 5 months of living expenses in this account untouched unless absolutely necessary. The two filters are simple. It has to be both necessary and unexpected. If it does not meet both, I do not touch this fund, period. Next, annual expenses fund. This account is for those big scheduled bills that sneak up on you if you're not prepared. Think car registration, insurance premiums, or annual memberships. The rule here is that the expense has to be necessary and expected and at least $100. That way, I'm not tempted to use this for minor things. Next, discretionary fund. These are for the fun things, birthdays, holidays, concerts, and they're not essential, but I know they're coming. So I save for them intentionally under the unnecessary but expected category to avoid blowing up my monthly budget. And I probably spend about $500 on Christmas every December, but if I start saving a year out, that's only going to be $9.62 every week out of my budget. And I spend another $500 on my daughter's birthday every year, and that's another $9.62 every week. And if I add both of those annual expenses, that's almost $20 every week out of my budget, or about $84 every month. And that makes sense so far, right? And the next one is a travel fund. And this is exactly what it sounds like. Savings for trips, whether it's flights, hotels, or gas. Travel takes a lot of planning. And if you need to take out a debt to go on a trip, you're doing it way wrong. And I usually like to plan my family vacation about a year out. And if it's going to cost us $10,000 to go on a luxurious trip to Europe, I need to start setting aside $193 every week to get to that $10,000. The one thing you need to prep is purchasing plane tickets. So you might need to save more to get to the goal a lot faster. And if you want to build a similar system or walk through how to structure your savings buckets, schedule a consultation with me at firesession.com/consultation. And sometimes just having someone walk you through the steps makes all the difference. Now, before you can cut expenses, you need to know your monthly nut, and that's your bare minimum monthly cost of living. And once you know that number, you can start identifying which expenses are truly necessary and which ones are just draining your cash flow. Unused subscriptions are an easy first win, and audit your statements every few months and cancel what you're not using. Most people are shocked to find they're spending 50 to $100 a month on things they forgot about. Food delivery apps like DoorDash and Uber Eats are another big leak. Try to limit eating out or ordering in to maybe once a week. You would be surprised how fast those $30 to $40 convenience meals add up over a month. And if you're in debt, there are two popular ways to pay down debt: debt avalanche, which focuses on the highest interest rates first, and the debt snowball, which tackles the smallest balances first. Both work, but I am partial to the avalanche method because it saves you more money in the long run. And if you've got credit card debt, prioritize that, but also do a deep dive into your spending habits to figure out how you ended up here in the first place. And paying off debt is important, but fixing the root cause matters just as much. And I paid off $110,000 in total debt in 2 years, way back in 2014 to 2015, by completely changing my lifestyle. And it was not easy, but now I have been saving over 60% of my income. And I say this to prove that it is possible, not to brag, but to show you what's on the other side of sacrifice. And if you want a guide to help you work through all of this, you can download the free fire checklist at firesession.com/resources. It's a tool I created to help people get clarity and take action on their financial goals. As you can see, this journey to financial freedom is not always a straight line, and there will be good years and there will be tough years. But the most important thing to remember is that every dollar you save, every bit of high interest that you pay off, is a step closer to the peace of mind that you deserve. So don't get hung up on what other people are doing. Focus on your own race, because at the end of the day, this is not about competing with a number of generations. It's about building your life on your terms, a life where you are in the driver's seat and you get to decide where you're going next. And this has been another beast of a video, and I hope you got a lot out of it.